Hello. There we go. I took the last few seconds of that timer to make sure that my mic was working and my camera. Apparently my phone changed IP address, so OBS wasn't picking up the new one for Droid Cam. I also got some taquitos over here because I was really hungry. So last time we were looking at Idem Cloud, or Pop Create Idem Cloud, because we want to be able to generate all of the execution modules for an Idem Cloud project based on an OpenAPI 3 spec or based on a Swagger spec, or Derek is writing a tool that will parse the Boda core object for AWS and generate a JSON blob that I can work with to auto-generate the execution modules for Idem AWS. So that's the goal here, is we're putting a little bit more work into this auto-gen, so that way we can wrap all of the clouds quickly. Going to be awesome. So let's look at how far that's gone, where that road has taken us right now. We're actually really close. We're really close to having all the exec modules for every cloud wrapped pretty easily. Oh, here's full screen. I should probably open up the stream on my second window. I also don't have a mechanical keyboard, because I accidentally spilled juice all over my keyboard. So that wasn't very fun. Not very cool. So I was looking at getting a new keyboard with the stimulus money anyway. Okay, so here we are looking at this. So where we left off since last time, we released a new pop create, and I ran pop create on all the pop create stuff. So it now has CI/CD and coverage and docs that are currently empty. And I could probably write more in these docs, but I'm not gonna worry about it right now. Derek's still modifying all that. So we're now using cookie cutter templates for everything within pop create. And the way that we get around cookie cutter, wanting to do things once for one repo, is we are copying everything we're doing cookie cutter in an empty directory. And so we don't worry about overwriting files. We just, do everything in a clean, empty, temporary directory where there are no consequences. And then we do a shoe-till copy tree from that temporary directory to your target directory. And depending on if you set the overwrite existing flag, then it will overwrite files with the new ones. Otherwise, the default, this is a new feature. If I was to populate those docs for what's changed between versions, this was a feature that's changed with the latest version of pop create. The default is that it does not overwrite. It skips files that exist already. So that's pretty cool. That's where pop create is at right now. It's at version 2.1. So you can use this right away. You can pip install pop create. You can run it and have all of these tools for your pop project. You can have CI/CD, docs, some basic tests set up, whole bunch of things. And now that we're following the cookie cutter templating format, it's way easy to extend pop create. Everything from the cookie cutter root dir down, this is what gets added to your project. And anything inside of this JSON string inside of the double curly brackets cookie cutter dot whatever, this gets replaced before the file gets copied. From a context that is generated in each of these plugins in it.py. So anyway, that was just a brief overview of pop create with cookie cutter. If you have questions, then let me know. We can certainly go into more detail about pop create, but that's not where I want to focus the time today. I just wanted to kind of give an overview. The other thing you can do with pop create is you can easily extend it into a new project. Like we did over here, we extended pop create into pop create item. So when you start a project with Idem Cloud, the first thing it does is it does a pop create on the core things. It does a seed, tests, and docs. Not CI/CD, because that ends up running git init and a pre-commit, and it ends up taking a few minutes, and it's not even correct when we run the pre-commit because Idem ends up changing the dependencies a little bit from a vanilla pop project. So no CI/CD yet. Nice. You figure out how to bring it in the right way. Yeah, it spins off those core projects, and then it adds some item specific things, like an updated requirements file. It changes the conf test for integration tests to take into account subs, account profile, context fixture. So these are necessary if you're going to do testing with Idem Cloud. So this is really cool. It makes it super easy to get started with testing in Idem Cloud. And it would take like weeks to get someone up to speed before on how to do all this, how to set this up properly. So it's really nice to just have a standard, say this is the cookie cutter template. If you want to write tests for your cloud, just start here. You'll tweak your own fixture, you'll tweak all these fixtures for your specific project, but yeah, it's really, really easy started. Cool. So that's where we left off there. So another thing that we gained from cookie cutter is these red lines. Because it doesn't like all the syntax errors of these Jinja inserts. But another thing aside from that is the ability to have these hooks. So you can have a post-gen project and a pre-gen project hook. One thing that gives us, for example, over here in CI/CD is it can be a shell script or it can be a Python script. So over here in CI/CD, the reason why it's not included in Idem Cloud's autogen function, or in Idem Cloud's context function like all the other core pop creates, is that this script will do a git init, git add, pre-commit install, pre-commit run. That's probably not necessary. And then removes the .git directory and then runs the tree command. And the reason why it's okay that I'm doing an RMRF is, remember, this is happening inside of a temporary directory, and I just don't want to create an empty Git repository with all of the files with hashed names, and then when I do my shoetil.copy, it's going to be like, hey, these files don't exist on the target, and then it's going to copy over a bunch of stuff from a conflicting Git repo, and it causes more problems. So I'm removing this from the temporary directory, but I created it within the temporary directory from here. So anyway, that's something really cool that we got from Cookie Cutter, was these post-gen hooks. Now in Idem Cloud, we have a post-gen hook. And this one created a class. Can you believe it? I created a class. I considered turning my post-gen project into a pop project itself, but then it's just like, for this, it could be one file, and I think this is a unique case where I actually do want my script to just be one file, rather than have this be a launching point for an entire pop project. because then I would have to have the whole pop project in one file, and that's complicated. That's a whole thing. Maybe I wouldn't. I just decided that it wasn't worth it, and I didn't want to do it. So this is not a pop project. So this post-gen project, the goal of it, in the Idem cloud repo, is this will take a cloud spec. A cloud spec is, I worked it out with Derek, and this is a while ago, last weekend, and this is the format. It's similar to the OpenAPI 3 spec, but this is a little bit more intuitive to me. Like for creating execution modules, tests, and other things for a pop project. It's a format that's based on OpenAPI 3, but is a little bit more easy to work with for creating functions, auto-generating functions inside of a pop project. And the goal with this cloud spec format was it gave us something predictable that we can work with. So so Derek, when he's working with the Bodo Core API and he's parsing that, he just needs to turn it into the format that this cloud spec class can validate and consume, and that's it. And when I'm doing Swagger or OpenAPI 3, or if there's some other way that you want to parse your cloud, like Google has a discovery agent, however you do it, as long as you turn it into this format, I'll auto-generate the execution modules for it the same way. Now, there's something else that I added here. This is still kind of a work in progress, and I used it to solve a problem of what happens between different cloud specs. They do calls in different ways. Like when we're doing a call with Bodo Core, we're not using AIO HTTP. It would be nice if we could, but we're not using AIO HTTP. Bodo Core is doing all that work, and we don't want to redo it. So I came up with this Jinja templating, since that's what we're already using for cookie cutter, to say this is what the request format is inside of the exec module. So long story short, when you give me the spec from your parsed Bodo Core module, or when you give me the spec from your OpenAPI 3 spec, I also expect you to tell me how do I make a request, or how do I format the request for an exec module call. So it's going to be hub return await. The default is to use AIO HTTP. So if you return await hub tool cookie cutter cloud name session request, and because of our cookie cutter template, this function will exist. So this call will work based on cookie cutter. And then we say and then for AIO HTTP, I want to say my method equals, and then I want a way to pass in a hard-coded method. Like this, for some functions, it'll always be a get or it'll always be a post. And so I want to pass in Jinja when I'm formatting this function request per function. I want to say, this is the hard-coded methods. This is the, this is a value that is going to be formatted into this string, and this is the value that is going to. Wow. Sorry, I'm having a hard time describing this because it's a work in progress for me, and I haven't actually tested it yet. So once I've fully formulated this, I'm just talking it out so that I can form these ideas, not to tell you how this works, really. But the idea was, I needed you to be able to, I need you, the person who's writing an Idem cloud module, to look at the OpenAPI 3 spec, or to look at whatever your spec format is. Me parsing OpenAPI 3 specs. There's three places that parameters can go. They can go into the query parameters, they can go into the data field, or they can be inserted into the path. And all of these are parameters that would go into the function header. And so I needed a way to say, okay, if I'm getting a parameter from the function header that is going to end up inside of a format string, I need a way to designate that target to say that this is the variable that it's going to. If I'm building a dictionary to pass to query params, then I need a way to do that based on keyword arguments in the function header. If I need to pass some different arguments from the function header into the data field, then I need to do that too. And I need to support a way for AWS to make calls with Bodo Core using the same templating. So this is what I came up with, and it's a bunch of Jinja nonsense, but in the end, it makes it so that when you're creating, this makes it so that you can hard code. Oh, that's good. You can hard code this EC2 client for specific requests. You can say which parameters are going into the EC2 client are going into this function call. You can say which parameters are going into the actual function call. You can actually have some logic to say what the function call is on top of client. I'm really having a hard time describing this, but long story short is this is my example of, this is where I'm headed for how we can handle things that don't use AIO HTTP to make requests, such as AWS or Google when we get GCP again. So this is what I'm working with. Once I actually use it, I'm sure it'll change a little bit. I just wanted to flesh out this idea. And if you have some feedback, great. I've kind of just got stuck on this Jinja templating route because that's what I've been doing with Cookie Cutter, and I'm not quite a Jinja warrior yet, but I'm getting there. Cool. So what the Cloud Spec needs, let's just take a peek at that real quick. Some basic information. I'm not actually using any of this yet. This is just generic project information. And then you have a plugin, or this would be a module in traditional Python. And for a plugin, I would want to know all of the subs leading up to the plugin with the plugin name, like the full path on the hub to the plugin as a key to the dictionary of plugins. And then I want to know what imports it needs, what virtual imports. And I consider virtual imports to be something that does the try import foo, accept, import error, has libs, true, has libs, false, and then the def virtual hub has libs. So I consider imports to be pathlib, things like this. So what I would expect to be in this dictionary here would be things like import pathlib. From OS import, or from sys import executable. Things like that I expect to go into imports, or into virtual imports. And then the virtual imports, I'm just going to wrap them in this try except and give a virtual function for it too. That was the idea with that. Virtual name of the plugin. This is if you want to give an alternate name for the plugin than what it actually is. For example, if I didn't want to call this function init, I could give it the virtual name of something else. Like I could say virtual name not init. And now it'll be called not init on the hub, just by virtue of me putting this here. Which I'm not going to keep. And then a doc string for the module, and then a dictionary of functions. Let's look at what the function validator looks like. The functions look like this. You have a doc, you have the return type, and you have parameters. Pretty simple for functions. Oh yeah, and then the key is the function name. Yeah, so functions are probably the most simple. And then parameters, and this is the one that gave me a headache. Is parameters, I need a doc string for the parameter because we want to do everything. Give me the type of the parameter. Is it required? And if it's not required, then give me a default value. Otherwise, the default value will be none. And this target and target type. This is where I wanted to say, this is where we're going to decide how this parameter is going to go into the formatted function call up here. Right here. So in this Jinja, I'm going to eventually pass from the validated cloud spec param. If you said that the value is hard-coded, then this specific parameter will be hard-coded into the call, such as when I say method equals get or post. I want that to be hard-coded in. I don't want that to be configurable from the function header. Or if it's an arg or a kwarg, or if it's I want to build a dictionary and then pass it to a specific value. This target and target type, I think, are the tricky parts, because I want to be configurable yet automatable. What ends up going into this request format. So if you hate this, let me know. If it looks like it's a good way to go, let me know too, because that's probably the most worried about. What was the best way to... Oh, the cat wants out. Hold on. Yeah, what's the best way to have different API calls, or to support the different API calls, like through AIO HTTP, through Bodacore, through whatever other Python tool you might be using. So yeah, that's why this exists. So all that's lacking for me to actually be able to test this is I need to turn an API spec, an OpenAPI 3 spec, into this format. That's all I'm lacking, and then I can like hit the ground running, actually generating execution modules and trying out this Jinja substitution and seeing how well it actually works. Actually was, oh yeah, request format was oh yeah, and then I have some basic execution module formats, which this is what an exec module looks like when it's auto-generated. I will always have my doc string with examples of how to call it from within code, examples of how to call it from the command line, and then this is actually where that requests, that default request format that we defined up here, that call is actually just going to be put in right here with the Jinja templating that we wanted. Yeah. So why is that right here? And right here. They're well in the way. Without further ado, before I can do anything further with this, before I can like go out pumping out exec modules, tests, and documentation for cloud projects, which we're close to. I need something to work with, something to play with that comes from an OpenAPI 3 spec and has been turned into that format that we created. So here's my to-do, and here's what we're gonna poke at a little bit today, is turning the OpenAPI 3 spec into that cloud spec format. We're not a very chatty bunch today. Looks like we have 4 viewers across the different streaming platforms. Oh, we do. Don't look too pretty yet, though. Yeah, but those strings and escape sequences, it's going to be next to impossible to properly lint in QA, right? Thank you for that comment, and the answer to, or my response to that set question is yes. It is pretty difficult to lint into QA. Like even my linter within PyCharm is giving me a whole bunch of red lines all over the place because of the cookie cutter templates. So let me show you what the solution was to solve that problem that Derek and I cooked up last time. Is first, I started the stream, early in the stream, I showed this post-gen project shell script for CI/CD. So when you run the CI/CD, like when you run pop create CI/CD on your project, it will run this hook, which will run all of the inspections in your project. It'll make sure that, well, it'll run the pre-commit that comes with your new project. So like when I do Taco Cloud, let's see, Popseed, I test Popseed. You can see right here, it's doing all of those code validations. Term trailing white space, mixed line endings, UTF-8, formatting, blackening the files, and it's passing blacken. So this is how you know that what's auto-generated with pop create actually works and is valid Python, is we blacken it. And then after it passes all of that, then your project gets created. Up until this point, it was all just in a temporary directory. And then once it's been put into after this happens, this is still telling you what is about to be copied over to the real target directory. Then it gets copied over, and then poof, you're done. And we do have, for the pop create project, we do have pre-commit running on this. Like I can go into pop create, run pre-commit, run AV, and you'll see that black passes. Well, black in my docs, even though my docs have all kinds of Jinja nonsense in it, I'm able to blacken the code. Yeah. So your linter will have issues with the cookie cutter stuff, the cookie cutter Jinja. Before you submit a PR, one of the tests, or all of the tests for pop create, have lots of nice integration tests. Will actually pip install the project within a virtual environment, and yeah, we'll test the setup.py, and we'll test building a project, and we'll test the run.py. So when you build a new project, or when you make any changes to pop create, we'll make sure that the code that is generated by pop create actually works before accepting a PR. So that's kind of what we had to do to get around the cookie cutter things. And a similar thing will happen when dealing. Oh, I accidentally closed one of the files I needed. Oops. So in dealing with this post-gen project script for Idem Cloud, we'll do a similar thing. We'll pip install it. We'll blacken the code. this is you're right that this is a little bit annoying to edit with all of these escapes and with all of this Jinja. This is really complicated to read, but what it ends up spitting out is readable code, is documented code, is code that works for your cloud. So this is the toughest pain point, but I expect that you'll only have to do this part once. And then you could set up a CI/CD hook that every time there's a change to the Bodo Core API or to the OpenAPI 3 spec for your cloud, you could just rerun a pop create item cloud with all of the parameters that you've already used and just have all of the new functionality built into the execution modules for your new cloud. So, and really no one's going to have to tweak this except for me. This is a mess. It's hard to edit, but it needs to be done for OpenAPI 3 specs. It needs to be done differently for GCP, AWS. Swagger will end up probably using the same one as OpenAPI 3 spec. I imagine most clouds will end up using this default request format and just make their calls with AIO HTTP. In my experiments with VirtualBox, with Vultr, Tencent Cloud, I'm pretty sure most clouds use a RESTful type of API that is well documented. So I don't expect this to change much, and that's why it's okay that it's a little bit of a mess. It's a mess that I don't expect anyone will have to touch ever. The only complicated thing will be give me the Jinja. That's all I expect from anyone that wants to support a new form of auto-generating function, a new source for auto-generating function. I'm going to build out the support for OpenAPI 3, Swagger, GCP, and AWS. Other stuff will be pending. Will be as needed after that. Yeah, people go crazy on those templates. I probably could include them as separate files. I mean, these templates, then yes. I do want these ones to be other files. It's just I needed a place to put it for now because when I copied everything from the old way we were doing things, I had a whole bunch of stuff spread out all over the place. And until I'm ready to actually start using this, I just wanted it in a string. But I agree that this should go in its own file so that it's easy to read. This template shouldn't go in a giant string. That's why I used cookie cutter in the first place, was to avoid pop seed, which had garbage like this all in one 2,000 line long file. So I agree. These templates, they'll all go into their own file eventually. It's just right now they're just placeholders until I actually get to using them. So I agree with you 100%. And it's that very same logic that you're saying. I also go crazy on templates, and that's why we ended up going to cookie cutter, because this is just a much better templating style than... Yeah, imagine this. Imagine all of this for pop create item cloud without cookie cutter. It was a mess. It was hard to edit, hard to maintain. But now with this, with everything in separate files, it's like, oh, I want to edit basic auth. Now you can come in here, and this is no syntax errors actually in this one. That's a surprise. But if someone wants to edit the doc strings that are automatically generated for this function, super easy to figure out what to do, where you need to edit. If you want to add a file or change a file within the directory structure of your auto-generated cloud project, super easy to do with cookie cutter. I'm really glad we made it. Great find. So kudos to Derek. Cool. So let's talk about how we can turn the OpenAPI 3 spec into the cloud spec format. Speaking of old garbage, this is how I used to be doing it. I was just doing raw search and replace. inside of strings that I had inside of this one giant file. So cookie cutter is a huge improvement, but there's still some OpenAPI 3 parsing logic that I need out of this. So let's do this. Let's turn the OpenAPI 3 spec into a cloud spec format. I've got 10 minutes. I've been talking a lot and not actually typing. It feels weird to just shut up and start typing. Feels like I should be saying something. That's some fun glitching over there. Okay. This is what we get from the OpenAPI 3 spec. I want to turn these paths into something that fits my new cloud spec format. So I think each unique path is a function call. No, this cloud spec, it's a format for turning OpenAPI 3 Jinja, such as this example pet store project from the OpenAPI project. It's a way of turning this into something that is a little bit more intuitive for a pop project. Because like these paths and tags and parameters, like this is cool, but it's not quite something that is useful to me within Python. So it was just the idea of the cloud spec is to give something universal that I can go from OpenAPI 3 to this cloud spec format, and Derek can go from parsing the Bodacore module and turn it into something similar to what I'm turning OpenAPI 3 specs into. Like we're all going to the same thing, and then from the cloud spec format, we then go to actually automatically generating execution modules. So the cloud spec is just an intermediary. We could have said OpenAPI 3 is the thing to go with, and turn Swagger into OpenAPI 3 and turn Bodacore parsing into OpenAPI 3 and then generate stuff from there, but I don't really like the OpenAPI 3 spec. It's confusing. Like, look at these paths. I have paths, pets, get pets, pets, paths, slash pets. Again, like I have slash pets defined twice, but one's a post and one's a get. And to me, this is, it's just not, yeah. The cloud spec isn't something internal to Item Cloud. It's something unique to pop create Item Cloud. Or pop create item. I can post a link to that too if you're curious about following this project. GitLab.com /spec pop create item. There. Now it propagated to all of the streaming. I published this project 2 weeks ago. Probably push more often. You know what? I'm not going to just say that. I'm going to push right now. Whew. There. Now when you go to that link, you'll see all of the things that we've been looking at. This pushed 14 seconds ago. Yeah, so this isn't properly documented. This project is still like pre-alpha. Like this is still the very early stages of this specific project. But the goal is having a script that writes code for Idem Cloud, make it as painless as possible to get started with Idem Cloud. Yeah. And then all we need humans to do is write state modules that actually use all the auto-generated. That'll be fun. Mm-hmm. You know what? Here, do this. Name. Servers. Not in for it. At bring this down so. Oh yeah, this was my basis for creating that cloud spec was how do I turn this into this? My getter and open API 3 spec. This is probably what I've been chewing on the hardest and what's been the most difficult for me is how do I turn this into this? But then also turn parsing the Bodocore documentation into a Bodocore document, have it work the same way for this turning into this as Bodocore documentation turns into a Bodocore execute AWS execute module. Yeah, that's been that's where Cloud Spec was born. For pub create item. I like this. I'm gonna keep it around, but I want to delete this old init file. This is where I was actually creating an execution module. This postgen project.py, it is getting pretty gnarly. I'm actually wondering, maybe I should turn this into a pop project. This one-off script. I don't like things that are... I'm gonna think about it. Because I don't like having everything in one file. It makes me cringe. I'll chew on it. There's probably a good way I can do it. We're almost at time anyway. All right. I'm gonna wrap things up here. Thank you everyone for participating. So that's where we're at with pop create item and automatically generating code to wrap every cloud in our standard format that so that you can have execution modules for any cloud easily. I expect item cloud is going to take off. Like my goal is to wrap the big three and all of VMware stuff, everything inside of VMware by June. So just 2 more months, and yeah, it was kind of an impossible task, and it was daunting. And 6 months ago when I was looking at it in October, it was like, oh, I need a ton of community support to be able to do this, to be able to write item AWS, or I need interns, or I need teams of people, and it was just me, and it was just me. And luckily Derek came along and he's like, here, how about we just automatically generate it? Then it was like the skies cleared, and it suddenly became possible to meet the goals and do everything with people as we have working on it. So yeah, appreciate that you're watching the item project and with a lot of interest. It's going to be really soon. Like our goal, it's soon not going to be just me working on item cloud. Like already, it's not just me. There's as the last sprint ended and the new one started, there are a lot more people at VMware, in Salt and on my team that are working on item and item cloud. So this is it is just alpha right now, but it's going to this is something to follow, and that's why I want to stream, is because I want everyone to see the progress. I want, if I'm making any huge mistakes, I want to know, and I will take a look at that JSON. I appreciate all of the feedback I've got, like even using cookie cutter, and so many great ideas have come from streaming and people sharing those ideas. I will look at. I've got to go because I have a meeting at 3, but already looking at this JSON net, this is pretty cool. A data templating app and tool developers, simple extension of JSON. Side effect free. Wow. I wish we had more time to just look at the. You know what? Let's do it. I can show up just a tad bit late to my meeting. Thank you for sharing this one. Our first peek at this. Yeah, it looks a little bit more Pythonic in this templating. I really like that because then I won't end up with syntax errors all over my Jinja. If JSON networks with the cookie cutter. No. It would be nice to have this in. Wow. Sorry, not just thinking about this, the implications of it. Huh. Having functions within JSON templating. Very interesting. I'll toy around with this. Thanks for sharing. I'll toy around with this and see where it takes me. Yeah, because I'm really annoyed by all of the red squiggly lines. And choosing something like JSONNet can make all of this go away. I'm for it. I will eat that up. So, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate your participating in the stream and for all your comments. So, with that, we're closing off. I'll see you all on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. Good rest of your day.